He's going to tell us all about a bloke, obviously an Ipswich clergyman, who could have owned Mossman in Sydney.
Well,
blaming imbecile. What's he going? How are you there, Harold?
Good morning, Danny. Yeah, he probably should have owned Mossman. The great wealth he could have had, lost opportunity.
Well, what's wrong with these people? How many of you and I had lost opportunities?
Oh, but this is a big one because this is back in the 1850s when things were so different. You see.
Tell us all about it. The 1850s. Mossman, was Mossman an upmarket place in 1850?
Oh, well, like as it always was, because that's what the money went there right from the start, and it's super upmarket now, of course.
Oh, of course.
And it all started, I guess, this story starts in the 1850s, when the Reverend Richard Thackeray was the vicar at Hunsdon in Hertfordshire, England. He ministered there to the likes of Sir Frederick Matthew Darley. Now, Darley in Australia later became member of the Legislative Assembly of New South Wales, Lieutenant Governor and Chief Justice. Life was pretty good for Reverend Thackeray when he married the daughter of Major General William Rice. His son married the granddaughter of Major General Richard Foley. She was also the second great-granddaughter of the third Earl of Darnley, who incidentally thought he was a teapot and was afraid his spout might break off. But anyway, Richard Thackeray then found himself here in Ipswich. And that's when his life started to go downhill. Ipswich did it to him. He's done it to other people too. But the Richard... Yeah, but look, for Reverend Thackeray, he was living here in 1861 when he went to minister with the Church of England in Drayton, near Toowoomba. But just the following year, Reverend Thackeray was thrown from a horse at Clifton in an accident that left him lame for life. Then the Reverend was left covered in brains and skull fragments when the station manager he was travelling with was murdered beside him. The murderer became the first person to be hanged in Toowoomba. The clergyman then fell into debt to Henry Spiro, who was twice the mayor of Toowoomba. Now, the Reverend tried to protect his assets by selling everything to his children, who at the time were aged from 10 years down to 4 months. That didn't work, and he still had to pay. His children didn't fare well either, because in a 13-year period, 6 of them died in infancy. Imagine that, every 2 years losing a child. Now, Reverend Thackeray himself died in 1879, aged just 52. But life would have been very different if today's legal standards had applied. You see, remember after he left Ipswich, he was lamed for life when thrown off his horse? Well, that was no accident. You see, Reverend Thackeray was in Clifton to solemnise the nuptials of the station overseer there. Now, the overseer's favourite horse was a high-spirited one. Now, the parson was a poor horseman, and that set the boys on the station thinking. When Reverend Thackeray was ready to leave, it was the overseer's flighty horse that was saddled for him. Now, the preacher, he climbed into the saddle in his usual heavy manner, and the horse showed his resentment by throwing the reverend gentleman to earth in a heap. Now his leg was caught underneath and his ankle was really badly dislocated. It was so bad that he was never able to walk properly again. Now, in today's world, court cases for compensation would have followed. And for the poor clergyman 160 years ago, you kind of wish they had. You see, the family of the station overseer in Clifton came into some very good circumstances. Their daughter married into the Mossman family, whose relatives included the richest and the most famous people in the colony. Our family included the 8th Premier of Queensland, Thomas McElrath, and the 5th Premier, Arthur Palmer, whose daughter-in-law haunts the House Dovercourt in Brisbane today.
He had 5 daughters.
There was also Emma Mossman, whose husband was linked to the murder on Mitchell Downs. Then there was Hugh Mossman, who discovered gold in Charters Towers. And brothers Archibald and George Mossman, after whom the Sydney suburb of Mossman is named. And as you know, that's the affluent harbourside suburb on the lower North Shore. At one time, the Mossman family owned all of it. So poor old Richard Richard Thackeray, the Reverend, he lost 6 children as infants, defrauded the mayor of Toowoomba, was a murder witness splattered with brains, and was lamed for life by negligent station staff. So, Reverend Thackeray, it was a case of lost opportunity after he left Ipswich. It could well have been well within his rights to claim some of that Mossman wealth from the overseas daughter's compensation. What do you think, Danny?
I think that is a story that was built from nothing to something, and you're brilliant. You're the greatest researcher. You must get up in the middle of the night researching.
I'm just dreaming West Bremer Radio 24/7, Danny. I'm only human.
Well, you are. David Muir's ringing me about an interview. David, I'm on the radio, mate. Now, listen, how do we get a...
Give David my regards. I had breakfast with him the other day. He's a good man.
Oh, did you? Because he wants to talk about researching on dementia. And it's worth talking about. Anyhow, mate, how do we contact... You've got your story up. You've got to put it up on historyouthere.com. And I still want some people to do some Christmas arcs for me.
Yes, it's December now. Time for the Christmas messages, I think, to come in from our listeners, Danny. So, historyouthere.com. The stories are there, and we want to see the messages coming in.
And we want a Christmas message of the Christmas ark. Noah's Ark. Like that.
Well, you know what, Danny? I'm going to come out to the studio and I want to get a Christmas ark from you two. That's what I'm going to do.
Mate, you're always welcome. You can walk in here any time you like. That was Harold the H. Peacock with historyouthere.com on West Bremer Radio. The time now, 8:21.